Scarlet and Violet isn't even here yet. We're still like a month away. But you know what my favorite thing to do is heading into a new format? That's right. We're going to be doing tier lists. We're going to be looking at our first overreaction into the new format. There's been a couple of tournaments over in East Asia, so we're going to do a gross overreaction of what I think where the decks are going to fall. And I'm only going to look at really meta decks and like decks that I think will perform. I think funny decks like Tandem Mouse or Dondozo and stuff like that, I don't really put that highly because they're going to all fall into like D and F tier anyway. I think that's a waste of my time and your time because when we get those fun lists, we can make some fun videos. But for now, we're going to rate all the decks that I think are real. Thanks, shout out to Deadly B for making this tier maker. He's a mod in my Discord. You can check that out as well. And if you guys enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. So before we start, you guys can tell me in the comments below where you would put some of these decks. And then at the end of the video, you can tell me how wrong I am. And we can come back to this video later in the future. So Arcdura does not lose too much from the rotation. It loses Parasol, but also the decks you need Parasol for. You don't really need anymore. So Arcdura is still a very, very strong deck, I think. But RCS plus Friends doesn't seem as powerful as it used to because Lost Box can start playing Sky Seal Stone plus Zapdos, take the 3 prizes off of Arceus, and then your lone Duraludon can't really handle the heat of being peppered down by Sableye because you no longer have Parasol. So now you're relegated to playing more healing cards. You lose Marnie as a potential out. So I'm going to go ahead and put Arceus plus Friends with Dura into B. Now Arceus plus Gudra, very similar to what Arceus Duraludon is trying to do, except you're playing, different energy typings. You are a little bit of a bulkier metagame deck, but you still don't really do a lot, in my opinion. I think you're still one of the harder decks to kind of set up and get the ball rolling. That being said, I think it still has the same exact problems as Arcdura, where like Lost Box will just pick you apart, especially with their pieces. And I think Tina is still a bad matchup for you. Both Dura and Gudra will just get one shot by the Tina V-Star attack, and so you just have to set up a third attacker, which is just not good. So it goes into B, I think, once again. Arc Tina, however, I think is much more powerful than the other Arc variants, because actually we're going to put these in C, because looking at some of the other power levels of these decks, I think this has to go into C. Arc Tina, I think, is the best Arc variant, which is going to go into B, rightfully so, which is why I moved them to C, because I think Tina has the ability to one-shot a lot of things in the format. Yes, you can't use Tina V-Star when you're using Starbirth, so it kind of takes away from that a little bit when you're dealing with Dura and Gudra specifically, but I do think that Tina itself is still very, very powerful, and 280 is a great number to be hitting on things, as well as, potentially 260, get rid of DT, put it in the Lost Zone for your attack, and then Choice Belt puts you at 290 or 310 respectively, and then you can also play, like, I don't know, some random grass or psychic attackers in there too, like you can play like Arctina plus like a random dude, but I think Arctina is probably the best way to play RCS right now. I think both the wall variants get significantly worse because they lose Parasol, and I think that's actually a lot bigger of a loss than people assume. Yeah. I think I would put Guardy Box in B tier as well, because I think the biggest issue with Guardy Box is that it actually needs to set up, and it's a setup deck. And I think setup decks are not actually that good right now in this format, given how much work you have to put in to actually set it up. That being said, it could still be really, really strong. I might just be like being like a stage 2 deck takes a lot of work. You obviously get picked apart by Lost Box. I mean, if you guys are watching, you could probably see where I'm going to put Lost Box. So it's just one of those things where I just feel like Guardy as a whole is probably going to get picked apart by those decks. But if Guardy plays some weird stuff like Clef Key and things to just buy time, maybe it can be good. And maybe it can like outlast the pressure from some of these decks. But I haven't found a good Guardy list yet, or like one where I feel comfortable that I would bring to a tournament. Like all the Guardy lists have been a little bit suspect. Guardy Mewtwo is going to go into tier C, because I think you already have the existing problems of Guardy, and then you're adding 4 V-Union pieces to it, and then you have no real way to search out these V-Unions because they're not a basic nor an evolution Pokemon. So your capturing aromas don't get there, your Nest Balls don't get there, like nothing gets there besides your Burnett's and your Ultra Balls, and that's like not a lot of cards. And yes, I know you have the Trade Guardy and the Trade Gardevoir in play, so when you can eventually get to those, you can just start trading. But how many prizes are you giving up in the process to get to this Mewtwo V-Union? Yes, you can power it up in one turn, but how much are you giving up to get to this board state where it's not even like you're playing a control Mewtwo, like you're not making this Mewtwo the invincible big bad boy. You're trying to just win the game with this Mewtwo. But even then, it's like, can you actually win the game with this Mewtwo is my question. So I don't even know if it's worth it. I think Lugia goes into C tier as well. Now I say this because I think Lugia has lost a lot of its really important pieces, meaning the amazing rare attackers and a lot of the special energy. So I think you're now grasping at straws when you're trying to even get the Archaeops into the discard with Incense and Quick Ball both being gone. You're playing a former shell of the deck itself where Tyranitar and Stonejourner are your attackers. Like, yes, I guess Lugia is still a good attacker, but Lugia doesn't even one-shot anything in the format anymore. Like, your opponents can just power up something, and then your Lugia sitting there like, well, shit, I can't even like one shot on Mew VMAX. I can't even deal with the Gudra. I can't deal with the Tina. Like, I'm just going to sit here and lose. And I think that just feels really, really bad when you're building a deck, knowing that like you're subject to bad special energies, bad attackers, and like these cards were in the bulk binder for a reason, you know. Lasso Ninja goes into tier S for me because I think Lasso Ninja is probably the best deck right now in the format just because of how they can be built, how much versatility it can have. Chorus Experiment's still very good. The new stadium, the beach court or whatever it's called, gives you the free retreats to keep pivoting back and forth. You have 4 cart, 4 rope. Could even play switch if you want to. Balloon being gone doesn't hurt. Ordinary Rod being gone does hurt, but you do have access to Clara, which doesn't change too much, honestly. Clara plus Recycler can still get you the pieces you need where you need to get them. And decks not being able to net up their attackers and stuff like that is also good because you can start swinging with Sableye early on and put a ton of pressure onto the board. Horn being a staple in these decks has been very good. And any combo with Sky Seal Stone plus Drapion just closes out games for you like very easily. Some decks are playing the Raikou version, some decks are playing Dragonite. Like you can play whatever secondary V, basic V you want to kind of just put pressure on other decks, and the Sky Seal Stone becomes live. LCB Zard goes into tier A. Same concept as LZB. I think it's just like Lost Zone is just good as a whole. But I think Zard is like a little bit more linear, where like you're playing the Snorlax, you're playing the Zard, and you're very susceptible to Lost City. I know many decks are not playing Lost City, but if you somehow find a stray Lost City in any of these decks and you lose your Zard, the game kind of ends because you just don't have a way to clean up the game with with Snorlax. So I think this is just significantly worse. I think I'm going to put Goo in B because I think Goo is similar to the Arc Goo, but you have, I guess, like pieces to move to it quicker. But people, like everyone's playing Rope, but I guess you can go Lone Gudra much easier. But Lone Gudra isn't even as strong as it used to be because of how many people are playing. I think Tina will be good. So I think like the Lost Zone engine is still like the comfy engine is probably going to be the king of this format. It's just kind of figuring out how to navigate your way through that engine. Lost Zone Tina goes into A. I think it's just, again, you have to get multiple V Pokemon into play to set up. So that's the only downside compared to regular Lost Zone box. But Tina is very, very strong with its V-Star power. It's probably the best V-Star power in the game post-rotation. So that's where I put it. I think obviously you can disagree with me, but that's just my personal opinion. Mew DTE, I think, goes into B tier. I think... Actually, no. Mew DTE goes into D tier. I think Mew DTE is probably... While it's one of the more consistent decks and still does what it wants to do, you are now losing Quick Ball to thin your deck. You are now losing some of these more influential pieces that in your early game setup, and you get stuck much easier with your hand. And also, every deck is playing Drapion, Sky Sealstone, so if you don't find a way to bump the city, or like you need to find your city on that exact turn to get the knockout and do all the usual shenanigans, but now you need to play paths because every deck is so much better than you. At using abilities like Gardevoir, you need to path like not you can't path Gardevoir. Sorry, my bad. No, you can path Gardevoir. Sorry, excuse me. But yeah, you like the deck just I think becomes significantly worse. I think I would even put Fusion Mew in B tier just because I think the high roll version of Fusion, the high roll potential of being able to just like turn one, put a ton of pressure on. You have Meloetta, you have Deoxys, and then you can offset the prize trade by going like 1-3-3 or like something like that to play around the Drapion potential, or just put the pressure on with the Meloetta. So even if they Drapion your Mew, you can go ahead and Meloetta again. I think Fusion is a little bit better in that regard. I don't know. I think it's just a lot of copium to put Mew in the higher tier. I think Mew is a very good deck still. I think it's a very consistent engine, but I think the problem is that there's a lot of counters to it. Miraidon Flaffy goes into D, and so does Miraidon Klefki. I think both those decks, while they have a lot of potential, with Miraidon being a very, very powerful card, I think they actually don't translate as well as you think they will, because you need to hit that, like, look at the 5 and attach 2 thing, like, more often than not, and I just don't like that. I don't like the high roll potential of it. I just don't like how the Lightning engine is set up right now. Maybe there's a future where attackers come out, or, like, it becomes just like a secret under the radar deck, and for some reason someone breaks it, but I think it's never going to be higher than a tier 2 deck. For disclaimer, every single one of these decks is a tier 1 deck, in my opinion. Like every one of these decks I could see doing well at a tournament. I'm just rating these tier 1 decks, except for this guy. RS box goes into D tier. I think Inteleon, as cool as it is, I think it needs a lot of work to hold the pieces out. The Inteleon, the Urshifu, the Octillery. You don't have the Sable engine anymore. You don't have Shady Dealings. You have Irida, I guess, to get pieces, but Irida is really slow. So you probably have to play stuff like Corinna's Focus to just set up your board. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem great when you're doing all this to set up and play the game. That is my early Scarlet and Violet tier 1 deck reaction video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments where I just like what I did wrong. What do you think should be better? And then we have a lot of Scarlet and Violet content coming up this week, where I'm going to be planning to do a lot heading into Charlotte and coming back from Charlotte. So maybe not exactly this week, but in the next couple of weeks, it'll be a lot of Scarlet and Violet content, buy list, set review, you know, the whole shebang. So you guys will be excited to come on through and jump in with me into the new set and get prepared for rotation. So hopefully you guys enjoy that stuff. Like and subscribe, you know the deal. Adios, everybody.